final get-together of the 1959 Forum Group. Tomorrow, the first departures start. So all things come to an end, and you are going to be boarding those airline buses. Ivan, you're first. Tell us, let's go around. Tell us where you're going and maybe what you're taking back with you.
Well, I'm leaving for Copenhagen tomorrow. And, well, at any rate, I'm taking an autograph book with me home, and I want that all my friends here in the Forum and outside the Forum would help me to fill it out.
Commercial. Cora, what about you?
Well, I'm going back to Hastings-on-the-Hudson in the United And I'm taking a mind which I think is no longer afraid to defend and question at the same time, and a heart which is no longer afraid to love.
Yama?
I'm going back to Sendai, Japan. It's the most overpopulated country, as New York is the most overcars.
How about you, Miriam?
I'm going back to Tehran, Iran, and I'm taking a lot of extra weight with me.
Leaving for Seoul, Korea. And I wish I could take this forum with me to Korea. And I'm taking my love, true love, to everyday living.
How about you, Abby?
I'm going back to São Paulo in Brazil, and I'm taking with me a very deep belief in people. Besides, I have stuffed into my luggage some very beautiful nylon nightgowns.
Rafia?
And I'm going back to Karachi, Pakistan, and I'm taking back with me 5 nylon saris.
You come to America to buy saris. Now, that's a good bit of international relationship. How about you, Jorgingo?
I'm going back to Berlin, Germany. I'll take with me hundreds of matchbooks.
Matchbooks you're collecting.
Yeah, stupid, I know, and the crew cut.
Johnny?
I'm going back to a teaching job in Sheffield, England. I don't think I'm leaving much behind apart from America. All these people will be with me forever.
Hassan?
Well, I'm leaving for Bursa, Turkey, and I'm taking a lot of new ideas which I have acquired here in the United States, and also I'm taking some original things which I bought in the United States. Some nylon.
Nylon. Original American. Ida?
Well, I go back to Milano, Italy, and I bring with me really a great love for everybody I knew.
But what have you been spending all that money on lately, all of you kids? I've seen you in shops all over the place. How about you, Katrina?
Well, I bought a lovely... I have a dog and a turtle, too.
Jan?
Well, I spent most of my money on records here.
And where are you going back to?
I'm going back to Reykjavik, Iceland.
Tisa?
I'm going back to Columbus, Ceylon. Well, I bought many gadgets like a pocket radio, but I think the most important thing that I'm taking back is tremendous respect and affection for some of the people I've met here.
Goiko?
I hope I'll go back to Yugoslavia, and besides my suitcase, I'll take back my hat, and I hope I won't have to swim in Atlantic, you know. We can also swim. Well, that's all, and very good. I think I'll remember this forum.
I can't see who's next to you. Oh, A.
Oh, yeah.
Besides all the beautiful things I've bought for my friends and my family, I'm going to take back the fond memories I had with my experience.
What things have you bought, A? Tell us now.
Well,
all right, censored. I won't ask. How about you, Marita?
oh, I'm taking back a lovely fluffy kitten and a smoker's cough.
Nadia?
I'm going back to Cairo, United Arab Republic, and I'm taking a bathing suit and sweaters and wonderful memories.
How many sweaters?
15.
Nadia Domian?
I'm going to Beirut, Lebanon, and along with a wonderful experience, I'm getting a stuffed doll to put on my bed.
Mohammed?
I'm going back to Madani, Sudan. I'm taking with me the 15 pounds of weight I gained here.
Wow.
Yes.
Roger?
I'm going back to Halden in Norway, and in my suitcase, I bring with me 5 pounds of chewing gum.
Me?
Well, I'm going back to Accra, Ghana, and I'm taking with me a new camera, a new watch, and a National Honor Society key.
A National Honor Society key. Good for you. How about you, Dandy?
I'm going back to Haifa, Israel,
and I'm taking my lifetime home, and I'll try to do some advertisement for Coca-Cola.
Nalini?
Well, I'm going back to Trivandrum, India, and I'm taking back with me a pair of blue jeans.
Christy?
I'm going back to Indonesia and taking the American warmness and friendliness.
Vizu?
I'm going back to Ethiopia, and I've brought so many gifts for my parents, but I cannot enumerate them.
Lan?
I'm going back to Saigon, Vietnam, and I'm taking with me a lot of jewelry and petticoats.
Jewelry and petticoat. How can you wear an American petticoat under your kind of Vietnamese dress? Not the great big full ones, anyway. Yang?
I'm going back to tropical Singapore, and I'm glad to leave the cold. But I'll be bringing home with me the warmth and friendliness of the Americans.
Edgar?
I am going back to the Philippines, leaving my love for my host parents here.
4 different host families. Adolfo?
I'm taking back to Buenos Aires, Argentina. Friendliness I found in the United States, and I'm not going to say that I'm taking back a lot of nylon shirts, because if not, I have trouble with the customs in my country, so I better don't say it.
Karina?
I go back to Savonlinna in Finland, and I take with me 205 pure American dollars.
Which you earned how?
Name that tune.
Yes, sir?
I'm going back to Amman, Jordan, carrying in one of the corners of my mind the idea that America is not a colonizing country.
Glad you're going back with that. Gus?
Well, I'm going back to Athens, Greece, and I won't take with me something which I would like to take, and that is a pretty American blonde.
Zach?
I'm going back to Bangkok, Thailand, and I'm taking back with me the traffic board for my father. It's weighed about 50 pounds, and with the idea of freedom and dignity of mankind that I don't think that I have it before.
Hope?
I'm taking back with me a large collection of pictures which will keep in my memory, which will keep within me sweet memories of America and the Forum Group.
We noticed you even had your flash bulbs on the stage at the Waldorf the other day during the Forum program. Now, there's a question I'd like to ask everybody. I want to be clear on one thing. You've been saying so increasingly lately that you think you've changed completely while you've been here. Now, is that really true? Yes? Ivan?
Well, well, let me put it this way, that when you say, or some say that we have changed completely, I think that perhaps we mean something else than the way we interpret it in. Perhaps people think that when we say that, we mean that we have changed all our ideas. I don't think that's true for a lot of us. I think that most of the basic ideas we had before we came, I think we still have them. But when we say we have changed, I think that we have changed as far as understanding is concerned. We came over here without knowing too much about the others, and sometimes we were even a lot pretty indifferent. But now when we came over here, we changed as far as that's concerned. We saw people from all over the world, and we spoke to them, and we became interested in them, and we gained some understanding, even if we didn't agree with them always.
I saw Evie shaking her head a moment ago.
Well, I don't agree with him when he said that we still have our basic ideas, because that is where I think that we've changed most completely. Because we came from one environment, and we always accepted that environment as the right one. And now we come in contact with 34 different ways of living, and you start to question if yours is right. And then you discover things that are wrong, and you want to change them. But rules don't change as people change.
What's been your experience, Rafi?
Well, before I came to America, I was not dissatisfied with life in Pakistan. But since coming here, a new kind of life has been thrust upon me, the Western influence. And this has bothered me a lot, because now I wish I could do something for my country. But what can I do? The position of women, if you just look at the position of women in Pakistan, if only I was allowed to do some kind of work. But how can I convince the people in Pakistan that by giving women a chance to work, we will be raising the standard of living? How can we get away from these traditional customs? 2 of my own aunts still wear the veil. And I do not believe that following all the traditions set by ancestors will do us any good. After all, we must remember we are living in a different world, and let us be realistic and search for today's truth, and not follow tradition for the sake of tradition.
No, I think I disagree with you there, Rafi, and I don't think Western influence should be anywhere brought down to the East, because don't you see that too many of our people are already being mixed up as to what to take from the West and what to reject. Of course, I think we should take what is good for us. We need mass education, industry, and individuals with a sense of responsibility for their own destiny and for that of their countries. But I don't think we should accept, or the world should accept, the Western kind of selfishness which led to colonialism, imperialism, and war. I think we should take back, and I think we should take Gandhi's belief and our teaching when we fought for our independence together of non-violence, and not militarism as it's going on now. Historians may record that we, with our beliefs of passive resistance, were the truly civilized, while those who spread their beliefs with the help of the sword were the 20th century barbarians.
Yes, Esther?
I agree with you, Nalini. I don't think East should be westernized. I mean, the traditions and customs. For example, in the East, marriages are usually arranged by the parents, and I really think this is very good and suitable to our society and traditions. And in Korea, when a girl gets married, usually her husband is the first man she has met, and she accepts it as a destiny and begins to love him. In that case, her love is usually warm and restless, and almost no people divorce, and society is very different. And I think with those traditions and customs, Korean society is purer and simpler and warmer.
Nadia, from
I agree with both Nalini and Esther. In my country, parents just think differently. I mean, they believe that the closer we are to them, it's the better for our security. And I've noticed that most young people who go study here are those in search of security. So therefore, we're going two different ways to the same goal. And I mean, maybe there is less romance in that method of arranged marriages, but I mean, I've heard that in America people divorce so often just because they get married in one of those crazy romantic moods and then they live to regret it for the rest of their lives. I mean, it's no use making a fairy tale out of life. You have to take it for what it is and be equipped to fight against it. And I believe that we Egyptians are realistic people, and we believe that marriages work much better without the fiction of romance.
Cora?
I have to disagree with that. I feel that we are being realistic in facing the fact that eventually people do have to make their own decisions, and thereby when the parents give their children freedom of choice, eventually they will be able, in most cases, to trust their children to make the right decisions.
Do you have something to add, Rafi?
Sometimes it seems to me that I've changed completely in these 3 months. I understand Nadia and Esther, but I also understand Cora, for now I've experienced both. But what should I do? It's very easy to say, go back and do something for your country. So I go back to Pakistan and tell my parents frankly that it is wrong for us to stick to traditional customs and that I would like to work in a village. How can I possibly convince them? They probably reply, I'm too young to know what is right. You can't suddenly change hundreds, thousands of years of tradition. How can I convince them that even though I'm only 17, some of the things I say are right? One generation after the other has taught the same thing, that women's place is at home.
What will happen if you say you're going to go back and you're going to want to change something?
Well, if one girl stands up and rebels, what will happen? Nothing. Nobody's going to listen to me. And I'm so confused that I just can't even think straight.
Edith?
Well, I think that you are right, Rafia, because it is very difficult to go back and make something for our countries. Because certainly there will be a great contradiction between our new feeling and our daily life. But you see, now there is a force in our hearts which tells us that we are right. And I decide when I go back to help my friends, teaching them to reason honestly, to be ourselves, not to be so conformist. Here in 3 months, I learned to wait, not always, for the help and advice of other people.
Yes?
I think Ida means that we must try to be an engine and not a caboose.
But how hard that is. How's it going to be in Korea, Esther?
Oh, I'm afraid that when I go back to Korea, then I'll be the most demoralized girl in Korea. And I don't even know anymore how westernized I have become just within the 3 months. And in Korea, for example, women open the doors for men, but now I'm used to passing in front of the boys, even though I still feel, well, I remember those things when I go back.
Ivan, what did you want to say?
Well, I know that a lot of the Easterners have said that there's a lot of Western influence in the East, and they sometimes seem to complain about that there isn't this same Eastern influence in the West. And I've asked myself the question, why this comes. And I think it's because that every human being, whenever he gets a choice, would be apt to choose more freedom rather than less freedom. I think that you, for instance, Esther, and Rafi over from Pakistan are proofs of that. But let's put it that way. How would I, as a child of the Western tradition, react in your society? I think I would feel that my inalienable rights were not being respected. I have self-confidence, and I believe it's my right to use this. In your society, I would feel oppressed and feel that myself, in which I believe in, which a life has been killed. And that would mean that life itself had really been destroyed to me.
Burma? I've been hearing what you said just now. I think it is easier for the Easterners to understand the West than for the Westerners to understand the East. Do you want to really know what I think when you say such a lot about that precious self? Sure. We even have a proverb that says, there's truth and there's self. Where self is, truth is not. And where truth is, self is not. When we say myself, we say it because we don't know ourselves. We don't know who we are and what we are. This is not the real self at all. This is just egotism. The real self is a state of absolute perfection. This is what I believe.
Miriam?
As we can all see, if when we're exposed to so many different ideas, we have no choice but to really think very deeply. And I think I personally, the result of these 3 months for me is that I'm more religious, but not because of Christianity, but because of all faiths.
Yes, Goiko from Yugoslavia. How have these 3 months affected you?
Well, I had quite many troubles here, especially with this confusion of terms. When we speak about communism, freedom, democracy, and so on, then you speak in your terms, for instance, about democracy, and about communism you speak in terms of, Russian foreign policy events in Hungary and Berlin. You don't speak in terms of good things that also communism have. Well, when I speak about communism, I speak in terms of my own national communism in Yugoslavia, where the communists are really good and the country is prosperous.
But has there been any problem for you as the only communist in this group?
Well, I don't think, we quite understand each other now. After a while, at the beginning, when I say I'm communist in class, for instance, they start, and then, after a while, they also recognize me as a human being, and we understand each other, and I hope we can live side by side. You say you are capitalist, I don't mind, but be in your country, not in mine.
Cora? Well, because of this experience, I have come across a conflict between a sort of impersonal love for my own country, America, and a personal love for each one of the forum delegates. And I think this has given me the chance to learn to listen to the ideas of others, opinions which could be completely opposite from my own, and trust that as I know that which is good for me and perhaps my country, that another too knows that which is right for him.
You know, what I wanted to say a moment ago, and I'll come back to it now, when you're talking about changing, I think there's a very great difference between change and growth. An apple tree that's very small changes if it starts making roses. But it grows if it blossoms and starts producing apples. And I want to contradict all of you when you say you've changed this much. I think if you hadn't had the capacity to get your mind stretched, you'd still be where you were in the beginning. I think this whole experience has just made you grow a little bit.
I think too that some of our ideas are almost completely the same as when we came here, but for the reasons behind them are very, very different. And I think there's really a true belief in our ideas rather than sort of a superficial basis.
I'm glad we've clarified it to that point, because nobody likes to change anybody. I think if you weren't capable of being changed, and this has happened in forum groups, people have come with so many prejudices that they've gone right back home with the same ones. But I think you have, all of you, everyone in this group, grown considerably. Adolfo, what were you going to say?
Well, I was listening to all this discussion, and almost every one of us seemed to be a bit concerned, and at the same time a bit very aware of developing of new ideas, etc. If I gain something, maybe an idea that I've got about something I would call, I don't know, universal friendship and universal brotherhood. For example, when Alini was speaking about the future historians given the judgment of the world in, I don't know, in a period of 100 years probably, and she was accusing us of being, as the Westerners, the barbarians of the 20th century. I don't think we are so much of barbarians, but anyhow. But she was talking about the future, and I wonder whether there will be any future for the world or not. I think that there will be a future. I don't think that we are going to blow ourselves up. I think that nations are going to mature because they will have to mature. And I think, for example, that the United States are going to stop helping other countries as they do now, for example, in Latin America, so as to prevent communism in Latin America, and are going to begin giving, just because they have and others need, expecting as a reward only friendship and peace, of course. It's only logical for them to expect that from others. Now, we cannot oblige the United States to do that until the enemies of the United States are ready to do the same thing. I think that nations are going to understand that they have to each other the same obligations that individuals have to each other in their own communities. This is an idea I got in the forum, and it's quite an idea for me.
Are you talking about some kind of limited world government? And do others of you have this idea? Roger?
No. Well, I think that in this generation and the next, the world won't be one world under any of the social orders or ideologies. It will be one world that contains them all. It must be, as America's own motto proclaims, a pluribus unum, one out of many. It must be a world of diversity in which the differences are recognized, accepted, and tolerated. Nations can only join into universal federation if it is a very loose federation. They can only be kept at peace if those who have the greatest power know how to use it to keep all power, including their own, in balance and in the harmony that recognizes, respects, and tolerates diversity. The world is not splitting into two worlds. There has never yet been one world. We are just beginning to try to unite civilizations which have always been separate. You must remember that only a few years ago, Americans thought that they could stay isolated from Europe and Asia. There is one thing that the system of toleration can't tolerate. It cannot tolerate intolerance. We must not fall into the error of thinking that the ideal of one world means that everybody's business is everybody's business. I think that one nation can't force another nation to be tolerant. But I think that the hydrogen bomb can do this, and that it is doing it now.
Marita, can you quickly sum up what these 3 months have given you to take back?
For these 3 months, we have had an experience which would have been impossible in any country without the American spirit of cooperation, or, you know, the airlines and the host families and the Herald Tribune and the schools and just everybody who worked on it, you yourself, who have been leader to us. And, this is an experience which would have been impossible for an ordinary tourist, because we have really seen American home life as members of a family, and American community life as one of the participants, and American schools as fellow students. And it has been for us probably the most significant period of our whole lives. But I've been thinking, if it were to end here, and we were taking home with us nothing more than pleasant memories, it would have been really nothing but a wonderful experience. And I sincerely hope that
we're taking home with us something more than that. We've been in a unique position to get something of the true spirit of world citizenship. That is rather a big word to use, but I think it has changed many of us from politicians into scientists. We've got to see that in order to appreciate something else, you must really understand it. And appreciating something doesn't mean accepting it, of course, but I think that constant communication with our fellow men and our fellow citizens and a constant exchange of ideas with the rest of the world is one of the most important things.
I've got to end on that, Marita, but for a final, I would like to have you hear three voices that normally speak in Japanese, Korean, and Persian. I'd like you to hear how they find harmony in Latin words that mean in English, give us peace.